Be showing you just a quick run through of Blender. This is as if you have never used a 3D program before. So Blender is a program that does anything from 3D modeling right through to Hollywood 3D visual effects and things like that, okay? You can do full-on movies with it. So if you want to know a little bit more about the ability of Blender, just type in YouTube Blender Showreel, and you'll see what it can do. Okay, so here I've opened up Blender. So to install Blender, you go to blender.org and you can download the latest version. So this is the first open here. I haven't got any other presets set. So when you first open, obviously you select the language to be English. We're in Australia, so English. Shortcuts, Blender shortcuts. Now select with left, okay, and the spacebar to play. And theme, you can change it to whatever you want, but I prefer it to be dark theme. Okay, so the ideal mouse to use, by the way, is a 3-button mouse. So a mouse that has a left and a right button and a middle scroll wheel that acts as a button as well. You know, when you push it in, it acts as a button. Okay, so I'm just going to click on Next, and here I'm going to click on General. So click on General. Okay, so just some basic things of Blender. If you've used Adobe software before, I'm going to assume that you've done that, okay? So you've got a bit of basic understanding of Illustrator or Photoshop, for example, okay? All right, so common things that are very similar to between the Adobe suite and Blender is that you have on this side here, you have your toolbar, okay? So your toolbar is over here, and on this side over here, these are like the settings. So, you know, in the Adobe suite, hey, how on the right-hand side, you've got all these like stroke options and different brushes to use and layers and things like that. They're in here, okay? This here is, in effect, your layers palette, in effect, okay? But it's more like your items, your objects that are in three-dimensional space, okay? Now, Blender is so big, it has different modes. Okay, it's a massive program. When you start out, first of all, you are in layout mode. Okay, and it's a lot easier to use layout mode right from the start. Okay, you've got all these other modes such as modeling, sculpting, and UV, editing, texture painting, all really wacky stuff. Okay, that could be explored later on. This is just a basic thing. So to explore this space, if you have a mouse with a scroll wheel on it, you can scroll in, you can scroll out to zoom in and out. So try that. Yep. This thing over here, this rectangle thing here, pyramid thing here, that's your camera. Huh? You actually have a camera. Okay, so when you render things out, when you export your image of your scene or object or what have you, or even as a movie, for example, because it has animation ability in this, you are using your camera to position, just like you are moving your camera around normally in three-dimensional space when you do photography. Okay, this thing here is your first object. Okay, so this here is an object. So to look around this a little bit further, if you go to your scroll wheel on your mouse and you press on your scroll wheel and move around, you can move around your three-dimensional space. Pretty cool. Other views, other tools that you'll probably want to use for Blender is that this is the hand tool, and you can pan across and pan up and down. So try that out. So all I'm doing is I'm pressing on this one here. I'm pressing the hand, keep my finger on the hand. Okay. For those who are using the Adobe suite, used to using Adobe suite, if you press the space bar, it doesn't do that. Okay. So the space bar in Blender is actually to play the playhead for an animation to occur. Okay. Other things are your X, Y, and Z coordinates. So if I want to look at the top view, I see X, and I have a look at Z, and I can go to Y view. So it's like working in orthogonal drawing mode. Okay, For those who have an Apple mouse, the Magic Mouse doesn't have a middle button. It has a scroller, but it doesn't have a button. So for those on the Magic Mouse, you need to go over to here and you click on that white circle and keep your finger on the white circle down, and you can do the same thing. You can move around like that, okay? Cool. All right. Other things, don't worry about some of these other things, okay? Now, if you want to add something to your space, we can go over to, now I'm just going to go over to this cube over here, and I'm first of all going to move it across so I can actually have something else coming into this space, okay? So I'm going to go over to the move tool over here. So I currently have the selection tool, so it's very similar to Photoshop or Illustrator, the selection tool, and you have selected this cube. Okay, so to deselect the cube, I click on nothing, and then I can click on the cube and I can select it. If I go over to this tool here, which is the same tool that you use in SketchUp, by the way, it's the same icon, the move tool. And here, instead of just moving something in two-dimensional space, you're moving in 3 dimensions. Okay, so if you want to move the object up, you move along the blue arrow. If you want to move it forward, you click on the red arrow and bring it forward. If you want to move it to the right, that arrow. Cool? Or you can sort of freeform it and you can move it around in some random space, okay? But who knows which way that's going, okay? All right, so it is best to work in a way that you can sort of understand as like an orthogonal drawing, first of all, okay? So this is assuming you're a VisCom student, okay? Visual Communication Design student whose understanding of orthogonal drawing is quite good, okay? All right, so let's deselect this item here. So we just click out into nowhere, and we're gonna add something to our space. So you go over to Add, and then you go over to Mesh, and you go to, let's put a UV sphere in, and that there is a sphere, okay? Cool. I'm just gonna move this across, move this up, and I'm also going to add in a cylinder, for example, okay? So here we have it, so we have these items like this, okay? So you can actually now move these items around so that they can sort of exist together in a particular space. Okay, it takes some time to sort of really understand how to use Blender, to understand how to position things that they all sort of match up. Okay, but you will get you will sort of get an understanding of this as you go forward. Okay, so if you're into gaming, for example, you'll understand the three-dimensional space more than someone who doesn't do gaming. Okay, all right, cool. So other things you probably want to see too is how to make something colored. Okay, so for example, to color something, you don't have the color tool over here because you need to go into a different mode. And that mode there is no, not rendering, it is shading. Come on, shading. Shading, okay? So if I click, so this is in a different mode now. Don't worry about all this other wacky stuff on the side here and everything like that. We're just concerned about all this space here, okay? So you click on, let's say, this circle here, the sphere, just select an item, and then to add a color to something, you go over to here, you go to New, and then you can change the base color over to, let's say, green, and there you have it, the base color changes to green. Okay? Now, another thing too with Blender is that if you want to see this as it would be rendered, okay, you click on this mode here, this thing icon right over here, and it'll show you with a light source how it's going to look. Okay? Cool. So that's some very basic stuff to get you started with Blender. There's a lot more to Blender, obviously. Okay, the learning curve of Blender is like Adobe Illustrator times 10. Okay, just all it is at the start. It's quite basic to understand the basic shapes and things. Whatever you want to do, there's a learning curve. Okay, so if you want to design a car, for example, look up some YouTube clips of how to render a car, for example, how to create a car. There are so many people out there, and I'll give you a list, even on this YouTube, in the comments section. I'll put in a list of other people to check out. Okay, cool. Right, and that'll be all for this one. Thank you. Bye. Please subscribe. Yes.